The wind cut across the desert like it had teeth, carrying the dust of 100 dying towns and the smell of something long forgotten. The sun was a merciless god, hanging high above the canyons, turning every stone into a mirror for its wrath. Somewhere between the shimmer of heat and the echo of hooves, a woman rode hard and silent. Her name was Claire Monroe, and she had been running for so long she could barely remember what peace sounded like. The bounty posters said, "Wanted, dead or alive," but the truth was simpler. She'd never been alive in the way that mattered. The desert didn't know her story, but it carried her scent, sweat, gunpowder, and a touch of whiskey from nights she couldn't forget. Behind her, the horizon boiled with movement, a posse of riders cutting through the dust, each chasing a reward printed in blood-red ink. Their leader wore a silver badge, but his eyes had the color of rust, the kind that eats through honor over time. They said Claire had robbed a bank in Santa Fe, shot 2 men, and vanished with gold worth dying for. But gold was just a whisper. The truth was heavier. She hadn't stolen for greed. She'd stolen for vengeance, for something taken from her before her heart had turned to stone. The horse beneath her, a black Mustang with scars down its flank, grunted under the weight of her determination. She whispered, "Come on, Ghost, we're almost there." Ghost's breath came out in plumes of fire as they crossed a ridge that looked down over a valley of broken dreams. An old mining town half swallowed by the desert. The town's name had long peeled off the sign, but once it was called Red Hollow, a place where men had come to dig gold and left bones instead. Claire slowed the horse, slid off, and walked toward the ruins. The wind played the old saloon doors like a hymn for the dead. She found shelter in the shadow of a collapsed hotel, the wood gray and splintered, the windows black as judgment. From her saddlebag she pulled out a small leather pouch. Inside, a folded piece of paper, creased and smudged. She unfolded it carefully. The drawing was of a young girl with wild curls and a smile that looked like sunlight. Beneath it, in faded ink, Lily Monroe, 1881. Claire touched the name like it was a wound. Her sister. The reason she had pulled a trigger and never looked back. The sheriff who led that posse, Elias Crane, had been the man who'd hung Lily for a crime she didn't commit. Now, Crane was chasing Claire across a country that forgot its sinners but never forgave its women. Night began to bleed into the desert. Claire built a small fire, the flames trembling like secrets. She cleaned her revolver, checked the cylinder. 5 bullets left, enough to end a story. The silence pressed close, broken only by Ghost's restless snort and the creak of the old town's bones. Claire leaned against a beam, hat pulled low, watching the fire die slow. Somewhere far off, coyotes cried, and she thought they sounded almost human. She didn't sleep long. The sound of hooves snapped her awake. The moon hung low, turning the desert silver and cruel. She could see them, 6 riders, shadows against the glow. She grabbed her gun, moved behind the porch, and waited. The first man dismounted, his spurs catching the moonlight. She could smell tobacco and arrogance. "Come on out, Claire," the voice called. "Sheriff Crane's got forgiveness in his pocket and a noose with your name on it." Laughter rippled among the riders. Claire's jaw tightened. Forgiveness? That was a word men like Crane used when they wanted to feel holy about murder. When she stepped into the moonlight, it was slow, deliberate. The revolver hung easy in her hand. Her hat's shadow carved her face into something unreadable. "Tell Crane I'll take my forgiveness at sunrise," she said, voice calm as a tomb. The men shifted uneasily. One reached for his weapon. She fired before the thought finished forming. The crack of her gun tore through the night, echoing down the canyon. The man fell, his pistol half drawn, and the others scattered for cover. Bullets sparked off the old saloon walls, the air thick with smoke and panic. Claire moved through it like a ghost. 1 shot, 2, then silence. When it cleared, only 2 men were still breathing, crawling backward through the dust. She stood over them, gun leveled, chest rising and falling with quiet fury. "Go," she said. "Tell Crane he's chasing the wrong ghost." They scrambled onto their horses, vanishing into the dark. Claire turned towards Ghost, reloaded, and whispered, "Time to move, boy." By dawn, she was already miles away, heading north, toward the borderlands where law dissolved like sugar in rain. The sun climbed behind her, dragging the long shadow of a woman who'd stopped believing in redemption. She rode through dry riverbeds and hills where the rocks looked like old bones. Each turn of the trail brought her closer to the edge of the map, and further from the person she'd been. At midday, she reached a trading post perched at the rim of nowhere. A single store, a water trough, and a half-drunk man rocking on the porch with a shotgun across his knees. "You look like trouble," he said as she dismounted. Claire smiled faintly. "You look like you've met her before." She bought supplies, bullets, jerky, coffee, and a flask of whiskey she didn't need but wanted. The man eyed her gun belt and the dust on her coat. "You ridin' alone?" he asked. "Ain't safe for a woman." She looked at him, long, unblinking. "Ain't safe for anyone." Then she was gone. The desert opened before her again, endless and silent. Every gust of wind carried whispers, bounty hunters, soldiers, ghosts of old sins. But something else followed her now, exhaustion, not of the body, but the soul. She thought of Lily, how she used to braid her hair by lamplight, how she dreamed of going east, seeing oceans instead of dust. The memory hit like a stray bullet. Claire's throat tightened. She muttered, "I'm almost done, Lil. Just one more debt to settle." By nightfall, she reached the Devil's Spine, a line of red cliffs cutting across the wasteland like a scar. From its edge, she could see the lights of a small town far below, Sundown Creek. The town where Sheriff Elias Crane wore his badge and slept easy, believing the past had stayed buried. Claire watched the lights flicker in the distance. Her hand brushed the handle of her revolver. The wind pushed at her coat, whispering like an old friend, "One last ride." And she knew there was no turning back.